I've enjoyed being in that environment. Like I was talking to you earlier today, being in a nice closed door environment, gym's beautiful, field is beautiful. It helps you kind of just get your work done in a positive way. The best part about our school, I would say, is like we have the American national team, the Mexican national team, and Dortmund that are kind of using our facility on an annual cycle.
Oh, that's the school.
That's the school.
Yeah. Isn't what's his name? Fernando there?
He as a coach,
Yeah.
I don't have a Fernando with me anymore.
No?
I think when I got hired, everybody that was a part of the staff moved on. Because when I came in, it was like a fresh slate for them. They were like, it's been 7 years since our last time we did this. We're looking for something and someone new. And when I came in, I got my own assistants brought in and kind of took over the whole staff. So I don't have, what you said, Fernando?
Yeah, he's one of the assistant coach for he also recruiting for all the ECNL teams. And stuff.
Oh, nice. And then also there was a head coach named Manny there. And he's now like at USD. So he's the head coach at USD. So I've already spent the first few weeks like with this player working on his ability to be cognitively aware while he's physically active.
Yeah.
And it's all about him learning about how or what am I looking for before I get up to 100 so that if I see it, I know to play it. And if I don't, then I need to improvise.
Yeah.
And his improvisations need to totally be less progressive and more possessive.
Yeah.
And like, it just drives me nuts because he forces things.
Yeah.
And he's so quick and so talented that he can get away forcing things.
Yeah.
But that's not going to lead to a player who's capable of competing at the next level. Oh, this is Pitside Prospects. Welcome to podcast number 14.
14, Monday.
It's been 3.5 months.
December 18th. We're out here in the afternoon now. It's super dark out. I hate this weather. I hate this time of year because then you just lose time for soccer.
That's right.
And I know people got lights, but not everyone can afford these lights.
Listen,
man.
both of my programs now don't have lights. It's just one of those things you have to work around. And I'm actually quite worried about my schedule in January because of it. Like it's gonna lead to conflict.
But without further ado, we gotta welcome our special guest
Yeah.
today, Tony Alcaraz El Che. I think the first question that I gotta ask you is, where did that come from?
I knew that was coming.
Yeah, of course, come on.
Just growing up, I got influenced a lot by Argentina soccer players and culture. It's kind of like I had no choice. My older brother influenced me with Maradona, Batistuta, and Batistuta was my idol growing up. So then after that, like the rest is history. So then I've always gone for Argentina and everything. And then middle school and high school, my friends and like the people there at school, they thought I was actually Argentinian, but I was not. And then in Argentina, Che is like in Spanish would be like fu or way, right? So then it just, my brother started me calling me that, and then a lot of my teammates in club were my teammates in high school, and then just kind of how it started. So now it's just normal.
So now that you're talking about your teammates and stuff, how about you break down who is Tony as a player? Who were you? Where did you get this love of the game from, man?
Oof. Great question. I mean,
that's what I'm here for. Dude.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, oof. It's just growing up. I grew up in San Isidro, it's a border town with a single mother, and then football was my only like escape. So then I started playing, and ever since I started playing for the first time, I remember I fell in love with the game. I think having an older brother that influenced me with the game, like with that's why I love AC Milan so much as well. Influenced me a lot with Maldini, players like that, Gattuso, Pirlo, Kaká, and then Argentina with Batistuta. He showed me Riquelme and all these guys, and then it just kind of took off from there. So then my brother would always like grind my gears because he knew, like in a sense, he knew I was going to be a short stature and my parents are short, right? So in order for me to be a successful footballer, I needed to be very technical, and that needed to just be like my bread and butter. And so that's something that I would work on every day, and that's what separated me from the rest. Another thing would be my character, my personality. I always had a lot of grit, I think because of the way I was raised and the circumstances that I was in. So I kind of had no other choice. So I always I never had my height and my stature, my weight affect me as a footballer, and I've always just kind of went after it. So that's where I got my grit and my passion towards the game, and it's just right now that I'm on break, I still find myself working. Like after this, I want to go to a coffee shop that's 24 hours, and I'm gonna work. Why? Because I use this time to get better. So that's the same approach as a player now I have as a coach. So yeah.
That's awesome, man.
Yeah.
Would you say that grit, it kind of comes from the struggle of you're training, you're playing, you have maybe a single house family, and
Yeah.
you know that even just to be there can take a lot from the family, and that you have to give yourself fully to it in order to kind of create, how do you say, that grit?
Yeah.
Like, and the struggles
Yeah.
to just be there and be a player in the environment and
Yeah.
give your all created that grit?
Absolutely. I mean, and seeing my mom. I mean, I wouldn't really see my mom because she would work the whole day.
Now that's something I
So,
can relate to.
Yeah,
That's-
so me seeing that, I didn't think about it so much before, but now, like, unconsciously, I'm like, that's probably what built this,
Yeah, I
personality
relate
and
to
character
that.
that I carry now. And my brother was always very strict on me. He was like a father figure to me, and then I took that to my game, and it would never affect me, and so I had my technical skill, and that was my foundation. That's what made me separate from the rest. And then another thing that was my personality and character, where I was able to be a leader for a lot of my teams that I was in and a role model. So yeah, I mean, I took that to my game, and I never shied away for 50-50 tackles. I played in the midfield. I would always get stuck in, jump in for headers, and I was a great ball winner, good box-to-box midfielder. So yeah, that's what got towards my passion.
Yeah, I hear that. Because growing up with two brothers, my parents divorced when I was maybe 6.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I was, just to have all 3 boys playing competitive club soccer was a challenge enough. That getting us there was impossible.
Yeah.
So it became a self-responsibility. If you wanted to do this, you had to not only take yourself there, train really well,
Yeah.
take yourself home, and then deal with the homework late at night or whatever it is you had to do. And usually for me and my family, my mom was home late at night, maybe 8, 9, cook a dinner, go to bed because she's got to work. And so I'd be coming home 9:30 and I'd have food, but I maybe didn't get to see my mom all the time. So it was one of those things where, like, this was my thing. And I loved that it was, and I was willing to put my full self into it.
Yeah.
But knowing that maybe I didn't have the same support that my teammates always did, that built a lot of grit for me as I was doing it. I really, how do you say, defined myself during that period, because I learned this is what I'm about, and this is what I'm going to go do.
Yeah.
Even if I don't necessarily have the support to make it all happen.
Yeah.
This is why I asked that, and bring it up.
Yeah.
But
Then where did your talent and your character take you? How far did it take you as a footballer?
Oof, as a footballer. So I played, I think when I started to, like, peak as a footballer, I think is when I played JC. I played at Southwestern Junior College, and my first year that I was there, the coach there gave me a lot of confidence, and he loved the way that I played, and I think that helps players a lot even nowadays. When you give a player so much confidence and you believe in them and they buy into it, you create something special. So he believed in me in the way that I played, and I got overlooked a lot because of my height. But I always trained and I always worked hard. So my first year at Southwestern, we had a phenomenal team. It was like an all-star team in the South Bay, I would say. And we only lost 2 games all year.
Wow.
And we lost to the team that won the national championship, which was Mount San Antonio College.
Dang.
what are you going to do?
Yeah, so we played them, we lost. And then my second year at Southwestern, I did well again. And then I was a captain of the team, and we won back-to-back conference championships, which was the first time it ever happened there at Southwestern.
Wow.
And after that opened doors to play at a university. So yeah, moved on, played at the university, studied. I only played 1 year. I didn't have the success I wanted to have at a 4-year school. Then I went to an open tryout. So now that team is in USL League 1.
Okay.
And back then there was a league called USL PDL. Back then they were Fresno Fuego, now the Central Valley Fuego.
I remember PDO.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I went there. I went on an open trial, and it was a bunch of people there. The community there in Fresno, they lived for the football. And the reason why I went to those trials because that was the semi-pro team in the States that I would see a fan base and had a stadium and everything.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So I went there, and I got picked out of 5 players, and to their eyes, I was the top prospect out of those 5. and they gave me the opportunity, and I played there for 2 years every summer at Fresno, and yeah, I mean, that's how I developed more as a footballer and created my name for myself. And then there was also a semi-pro team in Irvine called PSA Elite back then, and I was part of the U.S. Open Cup team, and where we had a stacked team. Like, everybody there played.
That's awesome.
The best players from UCLA, Cal, like everybody, guys that were like signed with the USL team they didn't have a team, they didn't sign for this team, they were in that team. So we had a stacked group. So I played there as well, and then by that time I was coaching at the same time, like, and as a side gig, and I noticed that I started liking it a lot. So kind of like that built something in me, and then I studied kinesiology at Dominguez Hills.
Awesome.
That's where I went.
So a follow-up question to that: when, and this may be a sensitive question, but when did you feel like you as a player couldn't keep moving up
You
levels?
top out.
Yeah.
Okay.
I felt that feeling.
So to me, it was weird because I graduated in 2017. I felt great. I think I could have pursued playing pro. I would still, to this day, I still train every day. I do it because it's a habit. I love staying fit, and I love being able to give examples to my players and how to hit a proper ball, hit a bending ball with the outside, with the inside of your foot. What kind of ball am I looking for into feet? How pinged in, the weight of the pass. I like to be able to demonstrate that, and I think that's something that separates me from the rest. I think that's a key that I have. So
100%.
yeah, so that's why I love to stay fit and sharp, and I like to be a great example for my players. So with that being said, when I graduated, I had a decision either to stay in LA or go to San Diego back with my mom, because my brother was living in LA.
Okay.
So I made the decision to take care of my mom, to be with my mom, and unfortunately the dream of playing at a high level, I was also very realistic with myself. I'm like, I'm not gonna retire as a footballer. That's what I told myself. I'm like, maybe I can play a year or 2 years, but it's nothing consistent. And then I had teammates and friends that played pro, and they'd play a pro a year, and then next year they didn't have a team, and it's stuff like that.
And you were starting to fall in love with coaching, you said, too,
Yeah.
at the same time. So you're like, well, wait, I can, and I remember feeling this, I can be right in the environment that I absolutely love, but
Yeah.
instead of having to use this, which I've used for so long now,
Yeah.
like, I need to use this.
Yeah.
And now they'll pay me to do this, so then I could give my full self to this, love it the same way I loved it as a player, but know that maybe it's not in the same competitive factor where I'm trying to beat out pros now.
Yeah.
This is a brand new game. This
Yeah.
is a totally different match.
Yeah.
But you feel like, okay, this is the next step at that point.
Yeah.
And I remember feeling very similar, where it's like I was topping out, but I started coaching. And it led me to give myself that thought, like, okay,
Yeah.
I love this game so much. I want it to be around in my life forever.
Yeah.
And if I could get paid to do this instead of I was on scholarship, so I was getting paid, but it was different.
Yeah.
It's not dollars in the bank. It's
Yeah.
just your tuition, your food, your travel,
Yeah.
which is great.
Yeah.
There's never talk anything poor about that. But it's now a paycheck coming to me,
Yeah.
and I spent the week giving players examples, demonstrations, or insight, or thoughts, and I just fell in love with that.
Yeah.
I didn't even know. One day I realized I had 4 teams and I'd only been coaching for 6 months, and I was like, oh, this is what I am.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah.
And then there was something else you mentioned to me that was interesting, as you were talking about working your way through the community college to the college and then to that peak zone.
Yeah.
In all the way through that, would you say that your bread and butter when you were a younger kid, the technical and tactical awareness, those things,
Yeah.
that was your strength all
Yeah.
the way through that rank?
Absolutely. Yeah, because I was willing to do things others were willing to do. Maybe they had the talent, maybe they had the heights or whatever. Because in U.S. soccer, or just in general, you look for a specific profile of a player depending on the position that you're playing and the system that you play.
Yeah.
So yeah, maybe I didn't fit that U.S. soccer, you know?
Yeah, absolutely.
And
100%.
you kind of have to accept it. But yes, that's what led me to my peak.
And I like to tell players like that, or smaller stature, because
Yeah.
that's who I am, that's
Yeah.
who you are, that's who you are.
Hey, thanks.
That you're welcome. But I like to tell them that, like, their bread and butter is going to be their control of the ball, their ability
Of
to
course.
pass, and how they manipulate it.
The
Because
ball, yeah.
it's not
absolutely.
going to be their greatest advantage, won't be the space. It's going to be how they exploit the space, being a smaller man.
Absolutely.
And so that's where, like, I like to touch on that because players are often overlooked at a young age because of the smaller statures. And we tell them all the time, hey, you got to work on your tactical awareness because then you're going to start to see how to utilize your body in this game. Whereas you can't look at the big, strong, tall forward and say, I can utilize space the same way he can.
Yeah.
You got to think about it completely differently.
Yeah.
And a lot of the times, players and parents, too, when they hear that, they're a little bit, like, not skeptical, but a little bit, like...
apprehensive.
Yeah, a little worried, you know, because they say, well, that's his only way of succeeding in football. And I always kind of lead the conversation to no.
Yeah.
But generally speaking, for players of this stature, this size, their greatest strength in this game would be agility and awareness of space and control of the ball.
Yeah.
So if you focus on that as a young player, you know, for players who are listening, they can see, well, if I am that stature and I do focus on those things, I can achieve all of those things.
Absolutely.
You can get to that level. But it's got to be something that you realize that who you are, what you have, and how do you work with it, right?
Yeah.
And that's where I think it's really interesting. You mentioned that as you were going through your journey.
Yeah.
So in your journey, if you had to go back and tell little 5-year-old, 10-year-old Tony, now you being, how old are you now?
30.
Now being 30. Don't. That's a sensitive subject here.
Oh yeah.
I turned 30 in 2 months, bro. I'm actually
really?
worried. I don't know why I'm so worried about it. I just guess like I feel like I need to do more before I turn 30.
Yeah.
And I just can't seem to just knock that feeling out of my gut. I'm sorry for interrupting.
So what would you tell your 5-10-year-old self if you could go back? And this isn't more, it could be like more of a message to yourself or more of a message to the young kids out there that maybe are in the same boat as you. Maybe they don't feel like physically they don't like where they are, or technically they may not be where they are. What would you tell that person?
I would tell them, well, if it's a message, well, this message can apply, like you said, to everybody else. But if it was a message to myself, I would say that stick to yourself, stick to your identity. That the journey is gonna be awesome and you're gonna enjoy it, and who knows where you might get. Because I think once you start doing things with passion and with your heart, I think that goes a long ways. Because I don't know. To me, based on my experience and anything that I do in life, when I do with this, I never miss.
Yeah.
And
that's powerful, man.
Yeah. So
that's really powerful.
That's the message I would say. Is just be yourself. Stick to your identity and your beliefs are. Because soccer is a beautiful game, and it's a game where any vision, any ideas, or anything are respected. And anybody that sees the game otherwise, I mean, I don't know. I think it's a game where you can. There's no right or wrong.
You can see it from all angles.
Yeah. So that's why I love the game, because being overexpressive or passionate towards something like this is amazing. So that's something that I would say.
It also leads to good debates because football's that way.
Yeah.
It's like you can hear something that somebody on the opposite side completely.
Yeah.
And then if you've been in coaching long enough or football long enough,
Yeah.
you can actually sit with the thought that, oh, I understand where he's coming from, or I know where that thought comes from and why people believe in it.
Yeah.
Even if I don't.
Yeah.
I can see, oh, wow, yeah, actually being in game so long, I get that perspective. And I hear what you're trying to say, but this is my aim and the way I look at it. And so that's why I say it always leads to, like, really good debates.
Yeah.
In the sense that football is gray. It's not black and white.
Yeah.
You can see it in every angle, you know?
Yeah.
And for, like, players growing up, that's one of the things that the identity you talked about,
Yeah.
I think is so important. I guess that was the word I was looking for when I was talking about a young player trying to define themselves, is the identity that you create of yourself.
Yeah.
And then you mentioned something else that was stupid powerful, which was, from a coaching standpoint, to instill confidence and belief into oneself, where your community college coach did that for you and you flew.
Yeah.
One of the things that I'm constantly trying to do is find a way to back my boys. You know, always instilling confidence and belief into them to see how they fly.
Yeah.
And realistically, one of my greatest strengths is just that, is giving people confidence in which maybe they didn't have before.
Yeah.
And then you can see every player do this. They fly or they die, with or without confidence.
Yeah.
You know? And like, a coach is a massive part of that, because the self-talk for a teenager or younger isn't always super mature or controlled.
No.
And so you have to have this coach, this person behind you, who's constantly giving you those positive benefits.
Yeah.
I saw the intent. That's good. Good action. Good choice. Good
So
decision.
I'm dealing with that, but I'm actually having to look at it on the opposite side. I mean, you know me, I like to look at everything on the more cautious, like what is going to be the effect of this. I'm not going to say his name. I have one player,
He's like highly confident.
super confident, like he needs to have his confidence. And one game where he's usually like a starter. One game where he didn't start, I just told him, hey man, you're not starting because of this. And I'm just going to tell him, I told him straight up, like, you're a confident type of player, huh? And he's like, yeah, coach. And I was like, well, when you get your chance on the field, make sure that you earn the minutes that you get. Because when he gets on the field, he can earn the more minutes by what he does on the field. He can also lose minutes.
You're kind of saying prove it.
So
Kind of. But
the-
also
the
with
dilemma-
this emphasis of, like, I'm backing you, here's your opportunity.
the dilemma
But
that
you
I'm
have
having
to
right
show
now
this.
is like this guy, I can't do that to him every single game. And like he is I struggle with, oh, do I want to play him because then he has that, oh, I'm a starter, I have confidence boost, or do I sit him and then have to like talk to him and be like, hey, you got to come in and like do bits. That's something that I'm struggling with right now.
Maybe you bring up the conversation of there's a fine line between confidence and arrogance, and that when you're confident and you're part of this team, you have a role, you own that role, and when given the opportunity, you kill it. With killing it in that opportunity, you will lead to more times to play and get more opportunity. But in the other side of that, with the arrogance, is if you go in, there's this understanding that you expect, and if you don't meet that expectation, it could lead the other way to you spending more time on the bench. And the silver lining, right, is that thin line between the confidence and the arrogance. And you said it, you can't repeat that coaching behavior with him, or else he's gonna lose it. He's gonna
be like, coach, you've said this 5 times in a row,
Yeah.
like this is boring, you
But
know?
maybe you could talk to him about confidence itself and how to compartmentalize it from when he's in the game and playing to be and feel that confidence, and then when he's out of the game, how can he add to the team or to your thoughts or to be part of that environment in a progressive way.
Yeah, and not make it
And compartmentalize that confidence, because when he comes onto the bench, he still has things he could do to benefit the team, and he shouldn't be in this sulking state. Like, that's not helping any of us nor yourself in that matter. So maybe it's an in-depth talk about how to compartmentalize confidence and the difference between confidence and arrogance as a whole. Because he's probably a teenager, and my guess is that he doesn't really grasp when he is one or the other. And talking to them helps them get it better and understand it. Like, okay, when I'm in this setting, in between the lines, that's who I am. This is how I feel. That's how I play. Yeah. When I'm outside those lines, coaches talk to me about being the team player and confident that this is what's best for the team here, and I should be rooting those guys on or giving information as I see fit so I can help, But it's not going to happen overnight.
No. It's a process that I've been dealing with. It's a process I've been dealing with because this guy, you could say that he's a player that on his club team, he's a starter. So he's got that entitlement, and this goes into my next question. This is for you, Tony. And I guess for all of us, because we all work in the same environment. San Diego being one of the most expensive cities in all of the United States, people having to make money here to actually live here, you've got some kids that are entitled. You've got some kids that, or not even kids maybe, some parents that may be entitled for their kids as well. The question is, can hunger be taught? Can you teach drive to any child? Or is it something is it from circumstances? Is it something that is outside of soccer that really instills that drive into someone? Or can it be taught through soccer?
I've always thought that everybody's born with the same tools. So I think everybody has them within them. But you can try to teach it, and you can set the environment to be at a certain intensity. Because, for example, myself, every training session at the college or at surf, I like to set a certain intensity and drive for a reason, because that's how I want, and that's my identity. That's how I want them to play. So, for example, me as a coach, my game model, my style of play, the way I was growing up, and the culture and everything influences also what's going on in the pitch.
100%.
So I try to do my absolute best to get the players to work a certain way and to kind of have that drive and grit and hunger that you're talking about. But at the same time, it's not no guarantee that Jimmy is gonna get the same hunger and you're gonna drive the same as Bobby. Does that make sense? So
Yeah.
you can work on it as much as you can. It's gonna take time, but I think that's something that it can be achievable for sure. It's just gonna. Some players might take more time than others. You might not even be coach of the player, by the time he has that.
Yeah.
Right. So definitely helps by the way you're growing up, but I think everybody has the tools to do that. It's just gonna take time.
I love that.
Like my question comes up is like, what does the entitlement have to do with the drive?
Because I feel like
Is
people
the
that
connection I'm missing.
people that aren't entitled
have more drive
Yeah.
naturally.
because they don't have anything to them. Entitlement is you given something because of who you are.
Yeah.
And what would be the opposite of entitlement?
I mean, I'm just gonna piggyback what you just said.
Yeah.
I think it's also our duty and our job as coaches, because I think that's another reason of being a coach. It's not just soccer and tactics and X's and O's. I think it's also us developing them as a human being, and giving them challenges, and for them to, because at the end of the day they're gonna be adults one day.
Yeah.
So that's part of our duty and our job as well. I think that's another reason why parents bring them to play in a sport, not just football.
I can speak about that in my own life.
Yeah.
Like without football, I'd be somewhere terrible.
Yeah.
Right? And that sport does that excellence for people is
Absolutely.
it teaches the human spirit, behavior, and also how to play the game better.
Mm-hmm.
But like I have to say, in the 3 cities that I've coached football in the 10 years I've coached it, San Diego has probably been, close to the most entitled zone that I've worked in.
Yeah.
It's very equal to the Barca Residency Academy, the players that were housed there, and the players that were housed there, is fair to say a majority of them are quite wealthy, as the program costs $80,000 a year to attend.
Yeah.
But then the players that come, they're not all this way. No.
Yeah.
But working with that entitlement and teaching these players like how to go and earn and get,
Yeah.
and it becomes, like you said, the human lesson that
Yeah.
kicks in, and it becomes really challenging.
Absolutely.
And then I came here to San Diego, and now working within 3 clubs, I felt a very similar force of entitlement, just
Yeah.
as in a general sense that I never experienced in Los Angeles.
Yeah.
Where for whatever reason that it was, the players that I played with and coached, very few of them had millions.
Yeah.
That wasn't a world or a word even in their life, and so now I've worked with plenty of kids who are raised in that with
Yeah.
millions, and a lot of it then becomes teaching the human spirit, but also where's the player sit and where do they need to develop.
Yeah.
And I found a lot of the time working on the human, we're not necessarily working on the football, and that it takes a little extra time to get both to go
Yeah.
than it did for the players in Los Angeles for me.
Yeah.
Because we could solely, for the most part, focus on football and the development within it. And when somebody acted out accordingly, I want to say it was self-policed a lot quicker in a proper manner.
Yeah.
Whereas the self-policing in my last few environments has been poor. I've had to step in and speak in how to handle this situation with each other in order to teach the humans in front of me how do we become the best team possible.
Yeah.
And like I was missing the entitlement connection to drive, but now I'm seeing it, right? It's like we're in Los Angeles, that drive was there, and then this entitlement might have been a little lower, and it led to the player development,
Yeah.
right? And so I'm still, and I don't think it's harsh to say, but I'm still working on how to manage that personality as they come to the field, because in a team setting, we need everybody to be part of and equally important.
Yeah.
And so that's where then you have this chip on your shoulder, like you have some sort of extra specialty that's not, that anybody else doesn't have.
Yeah.
And now it kind of throws a crowbar into how the team is going to progress as a whole.
Yeah.
And so it's been interesting as I came to the city. It's one of the things we spoke about in my early days here in the city, and that it was just shocking to me, and one of the things I mentioned too was with that came less of a will or a drive to make it to trainings regularly.
Yeah.
Like I had to, in my last few environments, really pull teeth to make sure that players were
Wow.
consistently at training.
Yeah.
Because all these other things were more or equally as important.
That's another thing about San Diego. There is something to do every day.
And it
No
was
matter
tough.
where you go, there's something to do.
Man, of course at Barca, it's a residency. So
Yeah.
everybody's there. You know how many players you're gonna have by the nighttime. It's an anomaly. When you get to the stage where you're working in Southern California football, Real SoCal, Pats, any of them in
Yeah.
this area, and you only get 2 trainings a week, and players aren't completely committed as a team to showing up for those 2, and they're at this event or the sisters that whatever or the birthday party or the beach for the girlfriend and it's like, why aren't you here, you know?
Yeah.
And it drove me a bit in my first few months a year in San Diego angry, wild, because I was trying to get people just to come.
Yeah, I mean, in that aspect, like thankfully I haven't really had issues in terms of attendance and stuff like that, because I feel like I've been spoiled in a sense, because I started at the JC, and then there, obviously it's a collegiate program, so you're not forced to be there. You're there because you want to excel as a footballer. So training for the most part for players, attendance is always there, and then I get to surf, where it's a club where excellence is required, and I've been spoiled in a sense that players are there.
Yeah,
Very high percentage.
They want
of
to
the
be.
Yeah,
They want to be there, and that's the feeling you need.
yeah, and that's something that, like, for example, at Cuyamaca, the head coach and myself, we work together, and we tell them, like, this is gonna be what you do, and that's it. And then at the club as well, when I send emails to my teams, I let them know that I'm gonna be there all the time, and that it's very important that we're here because we're gonna do this, and that, and it's a periodization plan that we have throughout the season, and we need everybody's attendance. And they also know that if they don't attend a training session, then guess what? He might not be starting the match when someone else is gonna play.
You fell behind on the information of the team.
Absolutely, and then not cool for everybody else, because who knows? Maybe we're playing Slammers, and maybe Slammers plays a certain way, and maybe I want to press them a certain way, and guess what? Timmy didn't show up that training session, so
No idea how we're gonna press them.
Yeah,
it's an issue.
Absolutely. So I think in that sense, thankfully, like, I haven't really encountered it so much. Like I said, I've been spoiled, right? So
It makes me excited.
Yeah.
I'm headed that way. So.
So now that we're getting into, like, the coaching, like all of the coaching things, like attendance and whatnot, how about we go into your coaching background? Like, who was the first team that you either was the assistant, or let's start with that one, and then we'll start with where was your first head coaching job?
Okay. So when I graduated college, so the head coach at Southwestern College was my coach when I played there, and he's a great dude. He has a great playing experience. He played at Galatasaray. And everything, and he told me, hey, like, you want to be my assistant coach? And my first thought was like, yes. And it was I didn't really care about the pay. What I cared more is where I would develop more as a coach. So something like people say, like, hey, how that I first of all, like, I'm very grateful that some people see me as a role model, that they want to be where I'm at and stuff like that, but I appreciate that a lot. So some things, when they tell me how do I do that, stuff like that, I say, you gotta be willing to do things that maybe may not pay you a lot at the time. So with that being said, going back to your question, head coach from Cuyamaca, he was the assistant coach at Southwestern when I played there.
Okay.
He influenced me a lot. He's a Chilean guy. He plays the type of football. He taught the type of football that I love to play. So then he told me, hey, you want to be my assistant coach? Stuff like that, like. And
at Cuyamaca.
At Cuyamaca College, we don't have resources. We don't have these awesome facilities. We don't have money. At that time, we didn't have money for assistant coaches. But so I was willing to be his assistant coach. But I knew the knowledge and everything that would come after that would be well worth it. So when I got there, I knew what I was gonna get out of that, and I knew that the head coach was gonna push me, like, out of my comfort zone. And whenever you do something out of your comfort zone, is only
the growth gets 10x better.
Yeah, exactly. So my first 2 years at Cuyamaca was not paid, but I was there every day during the spring, during the fall. I was at every high school game recruiting players and stuff like that. And so Cuyamaca College was my first assistant coaching job, and that kind of like led to my coaching education through U.S. Soccer, getting my licenses. But that was my first.
Awesome, man. And what license are you at right now?
My B license.
There we go.
Yeah.
You just completed that one, didn't you?
Yeah, in June.
How was that whole process?
We
haven't talked a lot about licenses in the podcast, but it'd be good.
Go my B now. I'm about to sign up for
Oh,
it
really?
and do it. Yeah.
Yeah, so the B license, what I like from it is the how special it is, because as a coach you apply.
Mm-hmm.
So they look at your playing resume and your coaching resume, which I think is pretty cool, because now you're with coaches that like this is all they do for a living. And so all the coaches there were phenomenal, and I got lucky. I got accepted on my first attempt. I know coaches that got rejected.
I've heard 5 rejections before.
Yeah. So to me it was like, oh, everybody gets accepted, right? So then people would ask me like, hey dude, what's up with like your license? I'm like, oh, like right now I'm taking my B, and then they're like, dude, I've gotten rejected for my B license like so many times. Like, how come? It's like because they always make fun of me. He's like, because you're at San Diego Surf, huh? And I'm like,
hey, if you want to get accepted for the B, you know what to do now, eh?
Yeah, it's true. I can confirm.
They're like, it's you're at San Diego Surf, right? And like you have this college experience and stuff like that. And I'm like, I don't know, but I guess I got lucky. I accepted the first time. So the B license, I would say, and I have no shame in saying this, I thought it was hard because of all the work and all the time you had to do in it. But with that being said, it was the most developing course I've ever taken.
I'm excited to hear that.
By far.
Because like when I took F, when F was still around,
Yeah.
then E, then D and C was minutely challenging.
Yeah.
I was at the Barca
Yeah.
Academy, and so it was like I had to be there, I had to be conscious, I had to be giving quality, proper answers.
Yeah.
But the challenge was low, right?
Yeah.
And I got out of there, got my license, and I was quoted to be arrogant.
Yeah.
Was how the
Oh, really?
instructor saw me.
It's-
It was like,
it's-
oh,
it's
you're a
funny.
Barca guy, you're arrogant, but you nailed everything, so I can't not pass you.
Yeah.
And to be fair, at that time in my life, I probably was. It's like 2 years into Barca. My ego was at an all-time high. Surrounded by... It was just what it was. I was surrounded by...
Not right now?
No. I mean, it's such a different place. But, like, I was surrounded by coaches, 12 guys from, like, 10 to 15 more years of experience than I, so 20 years in the game, from 10 different countries. Mm-hmm. And I was all day, every day, in a room talking football with those guys.
Yeah.
So when I came to the C license, it was understood, but still somewhat basic for me.
Yeah.
And I guess I showed that, and I shouldn't have showed that, right?
Yeah.
I learned something from that experience, that as I go into these, it has to be a clean slate. No matter what I have known, I'm here to learn what they are to give me and operate in that way.
Yeah.
And if I can do that, I'm going to get out of here a better, more educated coach, because I was able to put everything I know to the side and open up a new space for what is it that I'm missing.
Yeah.
And when I did that at the C, I don't feel like I grabbed all that much. So it excites me to hear that was really challenging.
Yeah.
Because I'm ready kind of for another course.
Yeah.
I think that if you wait too long in between them,
oh yeah, no.
you start doing your own thing again. And
Yeah.
you're really just flying like however you want, you know?
Yeah.
And so it's a good repetitive action to go and see them. And I'm ready for that next step. And luckily enough, just got kind of accepted through the contracts to get it all sorted. So
Cool.
I'm like headed that way and excited to hear about it. You
Awesome.
know?
Yeah, no, the B license was like I said, hard, and is the most developing course I've ever taken. And all the coaches there were quality, in my opinion. Like every single one of them, there was something that I grasped from and I learned from, and my instructors were awesome. So I would advise anybody that pursues coaching to continue their coaching.
Climb the ladder.
Yeah.
You know. And what are you? You're on C? You completed C?
No, I need to do my C right now.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Yeah,
I need to
you're
do
on
my C.
Yeah.
But
I feel like that's a...
Dude, it's huge.
It's
You're
something that
2
we need
years
to
into
like...
the game.
I feel like it's something that we need to keep like pushing with each other, because like Zach said, once you let it go,
It's bad.
it's hard to pick it back up. And I feel like that's with everything, you know?
Mm.
With the gym, with whatever that you do that needs consistency. If you don't do it for a long period of time, then it's 10 times harder to pick
My
it up.
advice to you, because you're so young and now you're in it, right? Is you're 2 years into coaching, right?
Yeah.
About 18 months, 2 years?
Yeah.
was when you approached me on a field.
Yeah,
and
but
said,
I'd
"I wanna
already
do
been
this."
done it
Yeah, for
2
6
years
months.
before.
Oh, 2 years prior than that day?
Yeah.
So you're about 3 or 4 years in.
Yeah.
And you're 22.
Yeah.
And you're ready to take your seat. So you're on a course right now to possibly have your A, if you did it all on time, by like 27. And if you could do something like that, you could, at our age, start to turn your brain towards UEFA licenses. And like you can go and get UEFA C and B by the time that you're 30.
Hey, but don't
It's gonna
make this
open
about me. Don't make this about
No,
me.
no.
We're here with Tony, man.
What
We're here with Tony.
I'm saying is, with the time that you have
Yeah.
and your input in the game already, the
Yeah.
best thing you could do is climb that thing
Faster, yeah.
on the track. Because you have to wait a year after you complete it,
Yeah, whatever.
but not to wait any in between after that clearance. So if you're
Yeah.
cleared for your C, pull the trigger. Because then you're going to put yourself in pole position to get the B.
Yeah.
You're going to be 23, ready to take a B course license, and people are going to be like, you are what? You're how old?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Because you get to the B license, and I'm willing to bet and I don't know, a
Yeah,
vast majority are
It
about...
was me and someone else, the youngest
Really?
candidates. Yes.
What would you say the average age of the people that were there?
Between
Average,
35 and 40.
Okay.
35 and 45.
Yeah. So you're competing with guys that are already 10 years more in their resume as you, and you still were able to be in there. That's awesome, man.
Yeah, it felt great for sure. But yeah, like the workload and everything that they make you do is very detailed, which I love detail. I think that's the best thing. But yeah, it was by far the best, and obviously whenever I get the chance to do the A and everything, I'm gonna do that. And then once you get your B license, you can qualify to be a coaching educator and for U.S. soccer, and that's something that is in my short term goal.
Are you thinking about doing it?
Yeah.
There we go.
Mike and Dembele did it, and Ndumbe did it,
Yeah.
and Chris Rogers, who came to Barca, and I was, I actually trained him before I left, is a coach from Southern California who is also an instructor, and these guys, they make decent money, like
Yeah.
every few months running a course. Although when the course is on, their load of work is extreme.
Yeah,
Like,
for sure.
like they're
Oh my
coaching,
gosh, yeah.
they're doing their normal schedule as a coach, and then on top of it, they're meeting with 20 plus coaches, and every one of those coaches has to submit paperwork or documents or
Every week.
homework, and you gotta be judging and
Yeah.
kind of grading their work. So I have recognized, like, if that's on your plan,
Yeah.
it's great. It's just it's a heavy course load, but
Yeah.
you said you're a worker, like
Yeah.
you'd be happy to do it.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then you said the details. I love that too.
Yeah.
The devil is in the details. I'm not a huge fan of that statement. I'm more like life is in the details.
Yeah.
The more you scope in, the more you're able to understand and see. So I've never really grasped that first statement. I always thought life is in the details.
Yeah.
You know?
So going like a similar question to you giving yourself a piece of advice, your 10-year-old self. What would be your biggest regret that you look back on now in your coaching career? You're like, I probably shouldn't have done that.
As a coach?
Yeah.
Oof.
I'm getting personal with you, Tony.
I know. My biggest regret I've had as a coach.
Or maybe your coaching career has just been going exactly how you want it. You don't have anything.
I mean, to be honest, if I wouldn't want to change any of my journey that I've done so far in my coaching career.
Beautiful.
I wouldn't want to change anything. I think I'm on the right path towards where I want to get to, and I'm just I've always been a person that I'm always excited for the future, and as a coach, I feel like I got a lot of potential in my own because I always self-reflect a lot, and I think that's very important that you become very honest with yourself and you start seeing, okay, I need to work on this, I need to be better in this and this and this, because I feel like any coach can always get better, and that's the approach I had as a player as well. Like, you can always get better. So yeah, I mean, no, I wouldn't. I don't think I would change anything from I love the path that I've taken. I think everything has happened for a reason.
It's interesting. When I think about my one regret, I have the same feeling and thought that
Yeah.
because I made that decision, it led me to a place that led me to Barca.
Yeah.
And if I hadn't made that huge, what I felt like was a mistake after I made it, I might have not ended up where I did at Barca. But, I was with Real SoCal for 3 or 4 seasons, and I decided to leave them, become an assistant for the DA at Patriotores. And when I got there, my role went from head coaching multiple teams and working with the head director of the club and being hands-on to being the assistant again.
Yeah.
And after 3 or 4 months, it wasn't like I was definitely learning new things by being in that more elite environment. But the actual practice I was getting coaching took a halt. It went from running multiple sessions, like 10 sessions a week, to watching a few, and so I regretted that almost instantly because I had a good home. I had a good director. We knew how to work with one another, and we were building teams. Like, we were doing it, developing, building. And I knew every single kid from, like, we'll say 9 to 18 in the entire club.
Yeah.
And so I was known when I walked around. But I decided I need to go to that next level. And I got there, and the grass wasn't as green as I was hoping, and I was left with this regret, you could call it. But 6 months at the Padilloras DA, and then Barca called, and I had this resume that said I'm working in a DA program. I have this capability of being at this level, but maybe haven't experienced it yet. And it opened the door to the conversation. So it's like, do I regret it? Yes. Would I change it? No. And it's interesting how that, when you look back on things, how that works. Because if you had asked me as soon as I left RSC, I would have been like, yeah, that was a mistake. Yeah. But literally 6 months later, I was beaming about it, and so that's how life can be sometimes.
Of course.
And like you said it best, you don't change that beautiful journey. You let it and you learn from it, right?
And that's the same thing that you said to your 10-year-old self. Like, it's a very cliche thing, but it's about the journey. No, it's that we all have our own little paths and our own goals that we want to get to. It's about what is the day to day? How does it look? And if you're enjoying it, why change it? No.
Yeah. It's not a single day that I'm like, oh, I gotta go to work.
No, you don't even work, bro. Come on, get out of here, man. Get work.
I do love that feeling. When I stopped working full-time engineering and I transitioned full-time coaching, I really felt like I stopped working. Like, just wake up, plan my sessions, go run the sessions, have fun doing it, come home, reflect on the session, do it again tomorrow.
You had a very deep playoff run with your community college. Yeah. I gotta say, that was pretty awesome, dude. Like, for me to see from the outside, I mean, I even sent you like that song that like you're
oh yes
yeah, that was the vibes that your club and your team gave me. We had a good question. How did you guys approach big games, whether that have been a super big league match, a rivalry league match, whether that have been the round of 16 or round of 32 games leading up to that final? Were there different approaches based on the game, based on the occasion of the game? What would you have to say about that?
I think tactically, yes.
Yeah.
Luckily, we're able to get footages from the opponent that we were playing.
Awesome.
So we were able to adjust, and the head coach and I, we do a phenomenal. We've been working together for 6 years, and we do a phenomenal job to work together, and we're able to identify trends and patterns like real fast. So I think me and him work phenomenal together.
I love that, because that's what football is, trends and patterns, no?
Yeah. So that approach tactically, yes. The style that we play, no, that doesn't change. It stays put. Our style of play still stays the same. I think we made it so far, so why would we change anything?
And then the question, though, on my mind is mentally, like an aura, like I guess going into big games, I've always made one of two decisions: is to try to relieve pressure from the team as they go into this game and give them confidence that they're capable and they're able to do this.
Absolutely.
Or the other extent, which is apply pressure and say, hey, the big games, this is what they're made of.
Yeah.
And I've seen both of those styles mentally turn out both ways.
Yeah.
Into successes in finals or big league matches, or into losses.
I think the players that we have, I mean, props to them. They believe in us a lot. Like, if we say that the sky is red, even though it's not red, they're gonna believe it.
It reminds me of what Danny Alves says about Pep. He's like, if he jumps off, I'll jump. And
Yeah.
then he's like 3 years later he goes, but if you told me to jump off now, I wouldn't jump.
and I think our players, like, they see how hard myself and the rest of the coaching staff works, so they're like, I would go to war for this guy.
Wow.
So yeah, so those guys, amazing group that we had this year, and not taking away from the other teams, but this year the team was just so cohesive. So in terms of the approach to the game, we don't, if we're nervous, we don't try to show the players that we're nervous, because the game already has a lot at stake.
Yeah.
And especially knowing that a junior college from San Diego has never made it that far, we didn't apply extra pressure, so we try to like change the face. But in terms of football and X's and O's, and what is our game plan, we never doubted it this whole playoff run, and we really don't. We believe in our work so much that we don't have doubt in it, and our players believe in us. So yeah, the only thing I would say is the state final. Unfortunately, we lost, and that was the first time that I saw the boys before the match, like kind of like rattled.
Right.
Even before the match.
Before the
Yeah.
final,
Wow.
and it was weird because the night before, this whole playoff run and the whole season they were loose. Like each time they came, they loved being together. They were like a clique of friends, and like, let's get after it. And it was just such
And that's exactly
yeah.
what I'm talking about. When they
Yeah.
hit that state, you have a choice to make as a coach. Do
Yeah.
we relieve the nerves by
Yeah.
like having a conversation or a communication of this is how we should go about this, this is how we should feel about this, or do you solidify the nerves with the importance of the game, saying it's natural to feel nervous.
Yeah.
It's a big game. Go out there and do what we technically style of play know how to do, and
Yeah.
the rest will take care of itself.
Yeah.
And then what comes up to my mind is we went to Spain and we had one of the best runs of the club overseas of all time. And then we got to the final, we were playing a team we'd already lost to in the group stage. Quality group, like passing, decision making, everything they had were better than what we had. But we were having a week where we couldn't be beat. So
Yeah.
we were going into it, they beat us in the group, but we made our way through to the final. And the night before, I could feel that same thing. Everybody had turned from we're grooving to, oh, shit,
Yeah.
we did this. We
Yeah.
made this. It's
Yeah.
tomorrow. And wake
yeah.
up, and I chose to do this as
Yeah.
a coach. I woke up, and the face I put on for my team was no pressure.
Yeah.
It's all good. No team's ever done this. Enjoy. The warm-up was going on. You remember what I was doing?
No.
I was dancing.
Oh wow.
I was dancing. I was happy that we had got this far.
Yeah.
And the players took that,
Yeah.
you know, and they went into that game with ease.
Mm-hmm.
But it backfired in the first 30 minutes.
Yeah.
We couldn't compete.
Yeah.
We weren't aggressive enough to
Yeah.
match that energy.
Yeah.
And by the time we got our foot in the game,
Yeah.
it was 1-0 against an opponent that had chips better than us.
Yeah.
And we ended up fighting into it and actually competing into it, but still lost the same scoreline as we did in the group stage to the same team.
Yeah.
And I will not regret. I will always debate when I woke up that morning and I put that face on because I consciously made that decision to remove nerves.
Yeah.
If I had gone the other way and said, hey, this is natural.
Yeah.
We're supposed to feel nervous. Let's go and we tactically prepare ourselves as best as we can. We go in there and we give them hell.
Yeah.
Does it turn out different? And
Yeah.
each time that you're approaching those big games, depending on how the team reverberates,
Yeah.
you have a decision to make about how you're going to present the feeling of this day.
Yeah.
And naturally, nerves build. Every human is the same. They want this so bad, nerves get put in.
Yeah.
And then it's like, as the leader, how do we address that nerve?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. I mean, there's times like that you may have to tweak your style because of how your team is playing or how the opponent,
Yeah.
the action of your opponent. So I agree 100%, and where I've caught myself at times in my teams that I become stubborn, but I become stubborn in my teams. Why? Because they're young, so they're developing. But now in the college game where you have to win, or games that you must win, I think you gotta tweak your style of play. Maybe if the other team is pressing very high and they're playing with the high line, you're gonna have to maybe play a combination in the midfield underneath where you might have to hit the space in behind where you're not used to doing that, but your opponent is calling for you to do that because
So
you don't have
to
limited
adjust.
space. Yeah, so you still have your same ideas and style of play, but some things sometimes do have to tweak.
It's more fluid in the higher levels because if you don't change, you will lose.
Yeah.
As you've seen the trend, the pattern, and you recognize they have the advantage in this situation, the way that it keeps going.
Yeah.
Well,
or maybe your boys are not as sharp as they usually are, right?
That's another good point. Yeah. So you got to pick somebody else to give the opportunity to, another player profile to add some strength into the air, whatever it may be.
Absolutely.
Yeah, no, that makes sense, especially at like the higher level in colleges where the win matters.
Yeah.
Right? Where the win really matters.
Absolutely.
You have to maybe adjust those things a lot more often.
Mm-hmm.
And that's one of those things like I like to talk about because, again, it's gray. It's not necessarily black and white.
Yeah.
Especially the sense of when we're talking about like how do we handle those big games. Every time I wake up in that moment, that day, it's gray in my gut. It's not black and white. I don't feel like, well, if I go this way, that's the way.
Yeah.
If I go that way, that's the way. It's always like, I'm personally deciding to go this way.
Yeah.
And I'm going to live or die on that sword now because I've decided this.
And that, as a coach, you have to. As a coach, you can't be willy-washy. One of the things that I like that you said was, even if I tell my boys that the sky is red, they're going to believe.
Yeah.
You can't go back on that, though. Because once they see the indecisiveness in you, then what do?
Yeah.
Oh, which one's right, coach? I don't know. So you making sure that, like, between you and your coaching staff or you yourself as a person, you die by your sword.
Yeah.
You don't let the game influence what may or may not happen.
Yeah.
And I like that you brought up that your coaches, that the guy that you assist is very, he's Chilean.
Yeah.
I have seen Hispanic coaches, and I'm saying Hispanic meaning anyone from Spain or whether that be South America, Mexico, any place. I've seen them be different than American coaches and how American coaches are taught. How do you find a balance between, you could say, I would like to say, a more of a energetic, passion Hispanic style versus more of a technical, stylistic style that is the United States coaching?
Yeah. I mean, great question once again. There's been
that's a tough one there.
Nah, that's a good question. I mean, so all my role models, like I said, it goes back to the first question.
Yeah.
Argentinian culture, everything. Yeah. Something that I've identified myself with is the culture of South Americans because of their passion and the drive that they have and their grit. Like, for example, my idols as coaches in the footballing world is, I love Cholo Simeone from Atletico Madrid.
Yeah.
That guy, like, to me is the best because he's just he loves it so much. Yeah, he gets involved with everybody and he doesn't care. It's him and that's awesome, right? So I like him. I like Muñeco Gallardo when he was at River. I still like him, right? But that guy, because of the attacking football they would play at River, even though I'm not a River fan, is phenomenal. So I like him a lot. And then my mentor is Chilean, and the reason why I liked him when I was his player, Brian, he's my mentor, right? When he coached me, was because in training it felt like a game. Like, he was so tough.
Those are the best trainings.
He was tough. Like, I would connect my pass, but the pass maybe wasn't as sharp as I usually give them, and he'd be on me. So I love that because to me, I hate going to training and wasting my time. And he said he has the saying, and I have the same saying as well, because I that's why me and him are like, we see the game the same way.
I'm gonna write it down because I already know I'm gonna use this one.
Yeah, we see the game the same way. So, there's nothing worse than a shitty training session. We hate a shitty training session. It's like, I dislike that so much because this is what we do. This is our love and passion, and for you to come and
waste my time.
Yeah.
Yo, vete.
Yeah. So like when you come to training, it's just training. It's an hour and a half of your day of 24 hours. Like, you just have to give it your all. No matter what you're doing, give it your all in every aspect of it, technique wise, everything of the game. Right? We need you fully focused in that time because you're getting my fully focused and yours as well. So I don't know if that answers your question, but that's definitely what's influenced me coaching, and those are my role models, and those are the guys that I look up to. So
yeah, I think so. Like, in the sense, we talked about it recently, that the time is our most valuable currency that we have to give. Whether
Yeah.
you're a player or a coach, you show up to this training session, you have to give your full self to this time slot.
Yeah.
If you don't, it's like you're spitting on everybody, your co-partners, as well as the person in charge of this thing, who are all giving them their full self and time.
Absolutely. And like when you came in, we had a shitty training session. Like we didn't get better, we got worse. So
It's not even burning the time, it's even worse than that.
yeah. And like we could have taken, even if it's a half a step, we could have just taken one more step, like just one more, you know. So I apply all those role models and all that passion and all that grit and all that whatever you want to call it, and then I add the way I grew up, the culture that I was in, and all the circumstances I was in, and my beliefs as well as a player, how I was. And that's my identity as a coach, I would say.
So would
Yeah.
you
All
say
that
that you align with the more Hispanic / South American Spaniard
Yeah.
method of coaching? Which
Yeah.
is a lot of intensity. There's information
Yeah.
being given
Yeah,
for sure, but it's a
absolutely.
lot of intensity. And I don't want to use the word. It's definitely not demeaning. It's a pressure. We're gonna call it a pressure, because with Adonai Jovel is the same. He's this guy from South America, never worked under a guy so hardcore.
Yeah.
Maybe Greg Tilson. Greg Tilson was a white guy from California, so
Yeah.
a lot different people, both quite intense people, but the way that Adonai worked was rough around the edges.
Yeah.
And the players that came into Adonai's environment, I talked to you this about earlier, was they all had that shared grit. Adonai wouldn't take them on the team if he knew they couldn't take his pressure throughout the season.
That's a good way to put it, pressure.
I'm
because
using that word. I'm going to use that word. Because that's what it boils into. It's a coach that wants more from their players, so they apply pressure and it comes out in rough ways.
Yeah.
But it's okay because the players that came to the environment knew that they could work well with somebody like that. And that we
Absolutely.
all flourished because we came together.
I think something I'm learning right now, and I'm still young, right? But my younger self as a coach, that is not gonna give success to every player.
the pressure.
Yes, or the passion, or maybe getting stuck
City.
into someone.
Mm-hmm.
It's not gonna work on everybody, and that's something that I've been working throughout the years, because I tend to get the passion and grit that worked for me as a player,
Yes.
and I would think like, oh, it's gonna work for Timmy and Bobby and Susie,
Uh-huh.
it's not gonna work for every single one.
No, some kids, they get destroyed and they feel like, coach doesn't like me anymore.
Yeah, absolutely.
Why did coach tell me
They go inside their
this?
shell, they turtle up.
Yeah.
And yeah.
So I still am myself, but depending on the player personnel and how they are and stuff like that, then I make adjustments.
And that's what makes the better leaders.
Yeah.
Knowing what Jimmy, what Susie, what Bobby like,
Mhm.
because we're not all the same, bro.
Yeah.
And we all don't have the same background. We don't know what that person was feeling on that day.
Absolutely. Yes, that's very important, because you don't know their household, what they went through that day in school and stuff
Mhm.
like that. So it's very true. And then I always try to put myself in the player perspective. That's another thing that I think is very important, that I'm very close to the age still.
Relate.
Yeah, relate a lot. So when Coach Brian used to coach me, for me it worked amazing. But maybe for another guy it didn't work so much.
Yeah.
So yeah, and then there's also different times. Right now we're at a different time and age, so I think you gotta adjust.
Yeah, so that was where I guess my thoughts of this question was, because I remember coaches 10 years ago, and I can't say 20 years ago because I was a baby,
Yeah.
but I can imagine coaches from 20 years ago that, and I'm just gonna be straight up, used vulgar language here in the United States, and I feel like you still see that
Mhm.
in other parts of the world, whether that be Britain, whether that be in Hispanic countries where vulgar language isn't so looked down upon as
Yeah.
it is here.
Yeah.
So
sensitive.
Yeah.
yeah, so I guess that's where I wanted to figure out that question. Like, how does the passion come out? Does it come out in a way where you're pushing them to, like, because of the words that you're saying, or is it passion because you want to build them up and, like, make them feel, like, empowered because they did something cool?
Yeah, I think that the last point is, I think it hits the than on a coffin for sure. I do it more because I just love the game so much.
Same.
So like I get too into it sometimes. But usually like I don't know. I mean, I never in any way. Maybe I did it in the past. Oh, I've done it in the past for sure. But I've done it in a way where it influences the player negatively.
Yeah.
So, like I said, now I've adjusted, and now I do get into it, not as much as before, because now I feel like I'm way more mature as a person and as a coach, and now understand that maybe this player will have success if I talk to him a certain way, and this player talk to him differently, right? Will help him as well. So I've made those tweaks, but I still keep the passion because I think that's what makes me different from the rest as well.
Absolutely.
Because that's why I look up to Cholo so much. I mean, Joao Felix, like for example, he's a phenomenal player.
Yeah.
But he didn't like Cholo Simeone, right?
Yeah.
So it's not fit for him, right?
Not fit for everybody.
Exactly. So different players have better success with different coaches, and that doesn't mean that he's better than you as a coach by any means. It's just that's just their identity.
Yeah, we talked about that where like with Steven Gerrard's situation where he was with Rafa Benitez and he thinks he's so cold.
Good job saying
right?
it correctly.
And he's like, I don't work well underneath that coldness, right? And it was like the previous coaches that he had, they were connective people, relatable people, so he worked better under that. And what we're talking about right now is actually a topic I was speaking to my captains about. Was these are three guys that maybe haven't always been in leadership positions, so they're asking, how do I become a good leader?
Yeah.
And their initial start to that step was to project the way that they felt the team needed to be. And I said, boy, a good leader is somebody who can get people to follow him, but a great leader is somebody who learns who their people are and adjusts how he works with each one to get the best out of all of them. And so he goes, well, that would mean that I have to change in order to become a leader. And that's right. As a leader, you don't go to change the people in front of you. You change yourself in order to get the best out of each one.
Yeah.
And you learn through the time, the process. Who is this? Who's that? How does he respond when I do this? And then you accumulate all that information so that you know how to interact with each of them to get the best out of all of them.
Yeah.
And a lot of people, they think becoming a leader is about projection and getting people to do as I see.
Yeah.
But it's more, first and foremost, understanding, relating, and empathizing with those people in one-on-one situations, so that when I become and I'm going to go project what I need to say, I do it in a way that all of them hear it the best. And that's how they start to see, oh, by example, that's how you lead. And so I think it's a really important thing that not only players, but coaches and anybody who's in leadership positions starts to relate, empathize, and understand all the people and parties in which they have to lead.
Yeah. For sure.
What would be your favorite? We're going to the final questions now, so we don't. I love.
Yeah, no.
Honestly,
this
has been one of our best podcasts.
I think it's got to be top 2 for sure. I want to say 10 was really great too. I just finished watching it over and over again. But this has been the most detailed, flowed conversation yet.
Yeah,
it's been great.
That's awesome.
I appreciate you coming and giving your time with us, man. I'll keep this one off camera. Then one that's on my mind, but here's one for the PG viewers. What is your favorite age to coach, man?
That was mine. That was my question. Yeah.
Hey, Zach's question.
I liked it. I thought it was a good question.
Take the credit,
I've been thinking about. Sorry, I've been thinking about it. I don't know.
Oof. I think I'm still figuring that out right now, but 11v11 for sure.
Yeah.
I think the youngers, like, I have a 2011 group right now, and just first year playing 11v11.
Awesome.
In their 2011s.
Yeah. A little tongue twister there.
Yeah. I've enjoyed coaching them a ton because they're so young and they're still very like sponges.
Once they get to that like teenage years, they're like
yeah. Like my own 9 group, they're having this swagger and stuff like that. Where like, but
freshmen in high school,
yeah,
they're gonna new kids on the block.
Yeah, we get that a lot. My first year, or not my first year, but I was always at the college. We get guys that now at Cuyamaca, we get players that played ECNL. They won national champions. They play MLS next and everything. So they think they're gonna come in and
Be
kind
the
of like
big guy, big dog on campus.
but no chance.
No. You go from here back down.
They get humbled real fast. They get humbled real fast, and I think the coaches and myself, we do a very good job in that. But I don't know. I think I like the younger ones. Like if I would have to pick, yeah, like youngers, like U13s, U14 boys.
I've found this out just in the last like recent like 6 years from coaching across the spectrum, and it's that first year in 11v11 that's my favorite. Whether they're 12 or 13, right in there, because like you said, they're still young enough to be sponge-like, but also they're young enough to not be influenced by the world around them, like to where their personality is maybe boxed in. They're very personable. They're like giving questions and answers and responding to each other without that inhibition that comes from being older and recognizing how people interact changes. And there's that human spirit that's still very present. And they're working in 11v11s. And then so normally the game is as complex and detailed as even maybe your 17-year-old players. And then you see these guys at that very cusp of like competitive higher age group do things that take an extreme amount of cognitive awareness and collective ability, and you say, wow, that's football. And then they come on, they celebrate like children, and you're like, oh, they're still kids though. It's one of my favorite things, because I'll show up to a practice that age group and it goes like this because of all the human interactions going on in between the training that's taking place.
For sure.
It happens like that. Whereas like with I love 17 and 18-year-olds. That's always fun because they're about to go into that highly competitive
big boy football
state.
now.
And so the intensity's there and all those things that you can maybe use coaching points that you can't use with the 12-year-olds. You can use them there. But for me, and that's why I posed the question, it's got to be that initial 11v11 age because of how human they really still are. Without the shell. It's all so raw. And like I come out of those things like, that was 90 minutes? Really? Like, wow. Oh my God. I must really enjoy that. And like more than my other sessions, because it just went boom. You know? Then I posed the question because I don't know if you have a favorite age yet, but it's one of those things that I've definitely kind of zoned in on, and whenever I get that age group, I'm like,
and ironically, every year I always get the team that's transitioning from 99 to 11v11.
So you get
So
to do
like,
it.
not because I pick it, it's just
That's where you are.
I guess that's my best. That's that I can develop that, and I'm used to that. So I don't know. I don't think I have a specific one, but for now, the youngers are cool. I like them a lot.
It's a good answer.
That transition from 99 to 11 is.
What are you smiling about? What?
I'm smiling because this is an excellent episode, dude. I'm smiling because I got to know more of Tony. And I'll be honest with you, I think the first time I met you was when I was it Reyes, or was it one of those times when Juan came out and just had a little training?
I think it was something like that.
Yeah. Or like a Thursday league game, something like that.
Yeah.
But I had always respected you because you were doing something that I wanted to do.
Yeah.
And I always say this, or I don't always say this on the podcast. I like to say this. I learn from people that have what I want.
Yeah.
And listening more to you and getting to know more about you, like that's why I wanted you here on the podcast, man.
Super cool.
I appreciate you coming, man.
No, I appreciate you guys inviting me. To me, it's like I'm flattered at the fact that I can be seen in a certain way.
Yeah, man.
And being as a reference, I think I'm flattered to be able to say that. So to me, it was like, absolutely, I'm always willing to help anybody out, and if they see me at a certain way, and that's great, I'm willing to help, because I know that when I was starting my coaching path, I wanted the same help as well.
Awesome, dude.
So I'm always coaching with an open mindset. I'm never thinking, like ego oriented at all. I think I've matured real fast. So I appreciate it. Having me here is
we
awesome.
appreciate it too, man. I swear it's got to be one of the best we've done so far.
For real.
And your insight, the way you speak, it shows a very clear understanding of the game through lots of experience, and the perspective that you have is personal.
Yeah.
And that's what I think is really interesting and great about you. And I think all coaches, they have to develop that identity.
Yeah.
And you have yours.
Yeah.
And it's what makes somebody, when they're coaching, great, you know. And also
you got any closing remarks?
Yeah, for any younger coaches, you know, follow your heart and be trusting to the identity the things that you believe in.
For sure.
And when you dive into those, like you said before, people come out of the world to support you in the same manner because like minds meet each other, right? And it's so one of those things that one of my closing statements would be, as you know, pursue coaching or pursue leadership, like follow your heart, be true to yourself, own your identity or create that identity, and then as you do, stay consistent with the work, right?
Absolutely.
Because if you get off of it, like the licenses we talked about, you miss. And so that for me is, from today, is kind of my closing statement. I think take everything, put it together, and say, damn, that was great.
Tony, where can people find you, man? If people want to get in touch with you, dude, if anyone wants to ask you any more personal questions, get some more details about Tony's life, where can people find you?
I mean, my social networks on
Yes,
Instagram.
What's your at?
I have my personal one, which is Tony X Alcaraz, which is my name. And then I have one that's football related. I just post just soccer stuff there. It's Fútbol by Che.
Hey, Che.
Yeah,
that's a good handle, dude. That's a great handle.
Yeah, those two handles, and I'm always willing to help people.
His DM is open. Trust me. He answered my DM, so you best believe that his DM is open.
No, yeah, for sure.
Yeah. You can find me at ZJ Kaizen and or Train Zone Sports on YouTube. And what about you?
You can find my coaching profile at Coach JCKM. And like you said, if you want to get some grip socks, trainzonesports.com. We got special sale.
Yeah, definitely.
All year round sale.
No, we got Christmas, New Year's sale. But I will say we're getting more and more personalized detail on them. So we're able to embroider them now. We're going to be able to put names, possibly flags, our own logo, religious symbols, all kinds of things. Your number, if it's something you prefer, that's in the works. And then my last thing that I'll mention is on the website, we're going to be creating a sign-up sheet for when the sun does return to us, creating groups where such players can come and work on Fridays, whether it's be in the youngest age group, the middle age group, or the oldest. We're going to start collecting people who are interested now, and so when the sun comes out, we're going to be reaching out to each and every one of you to see if we can get you into Friday trainings. But from that, that's really all. Good one. Go that way. Yeah.
Muchas gracias, man.
No,
Thank you for
Muchas
coming.
gracias. Thank you so much, man. That was